Chapter 21, Love of a Serial Killer. About 30 years ago in a small remote town, Sam's hometown, search efforts intensify for the missing 8-year-old Jono, now into the 12th day since his disappearance. This marks the second such incident this month and the 8th in the past 6 months. If you have any information that could help reunite Jono with his family, please come forward. Your assistance is crucial in bringing him home safely. Dale turned down the radio as he pulled into the driveway, noticing in the rearview mirror 2 men in suits stepping out of their car. In the sweltering heat and given the usual attire of the neighborhood, there was no doubt they were detectives waiting for him. With a weary sigh, Dale dragged his skinny frame out of the car, wiping his nose with the back of his arm before spitting on the ground and casting a disdainful look in their direction. "Hi, Dale," the taller man greeted him. His accent was unmistakably foreign to the area, and he wiped the sweat from his forehead as he spoke. The detective's approach stirred the dogs in the backyard, their barking a chaotic chorus. Dale, accustomed to the noise, noticed something was off. The shorter detective was already peering into the back of Dale's truck. "Your friends were here last week," Dale muttered. "They looked everywhere." The taller detective ignored the comment, his focus shifting to the commotion behind the house. "I hear you rescue dogs, Dale. How many do you have back there right now?" "About 18, maybe 17, Dale replied, a flicker of discomfort crossing his face. The detective by the truck chimed in, his tone laced with suspicion. "What do you do with them? Find them homes? Sell them?" "No, these are the dogs no one wants. I keep them," Dale replied, his tone flat. The shorter detective glanced around, taking in the rundown cabin that Dale called home. "That's a lot of work and a lot of mouths to feed. I'm guessing it's not with some fortune you inherited," he said, his gaze lingering on the dilapidated structure. The odor from the 18 dogs in the backyard was strong enough to be smelled even from this side of the house. "I help out farmers, and they help the dogs. I also grab scraps from the slaughterhouse," Dale explained. The taller detective raised an eyebrow, looking Dale up and down. The boy was all bones, with a limp that suggested an old injury that had never healed properly. "What's your specialty in helping farmers? Where were you today, son?" he asked. "A farmer had a fox that got stuck in his front-mounted mower," Dale said. "It was shredded and splattered everywhere in the machine. I take care of the jobs no one else wants to do." The shorter detective's eyes narrowed. "So, what did you do with the leftovers? Barbecued?" The taller detective, clearly the one in charge, shot his subordinate a dirty look. "I don't eat animals, and not much was left to bring back for the dogs either," Dale responded. He was no stranger to suspicion or confrontation. Sensing the rising tension, the lead detective stepped in to diffuse it. "He's just messing with you, son. Maybe because the back of your truck is spotless, no sign of you carrying a carcass, and the shovel doesn't have a speck of dirt on it." "I clean it because if the dogs smell blood, they'll lick it, and they might get sick," Dale explained. The two detectives exchanged a quick look. Despite Dale's simple speech and demeanor, there was something unsettling about him, a quiet intensity that was hard to pin down. How could someone with such a love for living creatures be suspected of kidnapping all those missing boys, leaving no trace behind? Dale's property had been searched after each disappearance. The first missing boy had been seen talking to him, and Dale's reputation as a creep, largely due to the legacy his parents had left behind, didn't help. His mother had abandoned him when he was 8, leaving him with an alcoholic, abusive father who drank himself to death by the time Dale was 13. He had raised himself, pouring all his love into the only beings that loved him back: his dogs. "Do you mind if we take a look at your dogs?" the taller detective asked. "Your friends have searched the place before," Dale protested. "We just want to see the dogs." Reluctantly, Dale led them to the backyard. The smell was foul, and the dogs, housed in a large cage, rushed to the front, wagging their tails eagerly. They clearly loved Dale. "How many do you have right now?" the taller man asked. 18, Dale answered without hesitation. "Are they all here?" the shorter detective inquired. "Yes." "Then why am I counting 17? The shorter man pressed. Dale's eyes widened with a mix of worry and anger. He quickly scanned the cage, murmuring a name the detectives couldn't catch, but it was clear he knew which dog was missing. He hurriedly opened the cage and walked inside, heading toward the back. No, 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 he whimpered, kneeling down to pick up an unconscious dog from the ground. He cradled the dog in his arms, rocking it gently, as if mourning a child. It was clear the dog wasn't going to make it. That one doesn't look good at all, man, the lower-ranking detective stated the obvious. Dale, lost in his grief, didn't react. He was mortified. The illness must have come from the last dog he found about 6 weeks ago, an unintentional plague brought into his sanctuary. Have any others died recently? You might need to find homes for them if you can't afford a vet or can't look after them properly, the other cop added. They're mine, and I know how to look after them, Dale shouted, his voice cracking. He stormed out of the cage as quickly as his limp would allow, making his uneven gait more pronounced. The two men exchanged a look. They had little to gain from staying. They knew there was no chance of finding new evidence here. If there had been any, it would have surfaced during the numerous previous searches. Both detectives were genuinely concerned for the well-being of the remaining 17 dogs, but they had bigger concerns. A cold-hearted kidnapper with no mercy for children was still on the loose, most likely killing with precision and no apparent motive. The killer might have left town and never returned. He was someone a child would trust, someone who blended in, a man who could be mistaken for a cop or a paramedic, perhaps even someone with a female accomplice. The detectives knew that the first victim had likely been taken not long after leaving Dale's rundown home. It wasn't a good neighborhood, and the kid came from a family that didn't care much. Dale had admitted that the first boy had visited to see his dogs. It was the kind of lure any predator would use to attract a child. But what about the others? How could this man, who appeared so broken, have outsmarted the police? There wasn't much left to discuss, so they decided to leave. Dale remained in the corner, gently patting the sick dog. Outside, the shorter man asked, "So what do you think, boss? Do you think he's been feeding the kids to the dogs?" Nah, the taller man replied. You saw that pigsty he lives in. He's not much of a cleaner, and there was no trace of any human DNA found in the previous raids. There are no other suspects, the lower-ranking detective replied. You think we shouldn't keep him under surveillance? Look, they found the first kid's fingerprints in Dale's house, on the cage and the front door. After the second kid went missing, they searched his place again and found the same prints, just faded. This kid doesn't clean. How do you think he's hiding evidence, huh? There are no other suspects because the person we're looking for has no motive, is very smart and very careful. He continued as they sat in the car. I'm certain Dale can't possibly be behind this. I'm sick of people and their prejudice against those who don't live and dress by their standards. So no, I don't think we should waste time and resources on him. The good-natured detective lost his job after Dale was finally caught for his heinous crimes. Sam could vaguely remember those horrible days. Kids weren't allowed to go outside and play. She also recalled the day they caught the man and the day he was executed, not by law enforcement, but by one of the kid's uncles who found his way into the prison and did the job before the man even went to trial.